thank you very much, David, for being with us. And I want to start out by putting up the statement that you issued today. And it said, we urge the Trump administration not to impose tariffs that could threaten to undo the historical economic growth and the tax cuts and the president's deregulatory agenda have unleashed. Well, that just about says it, because you, of course, were very much in favor of growth. The president came in saying he was a pro-growth president. Why is he pulling it back?
You know, David, and we have celebrated what President Trump's accomplished with these tax cuts and the deregulation throughout his agencies. And we're seeing the impact. The market shows it with the rise that we've seen, but also in job growth and optimism, all the measures that the economy is coming back and growing. The reason we're opposed to this is the tariffs, and they're a tax, would essentially undo a lot of the benefit of that for economic growth, for wage increases, for tax cuts that people get. They're going to have to pay more now for a lot of goods. I think the president is looking at this as a part of his campaign promises. What I'm hoping he'll do is think of it not as a specific promise to put tariffs on, because that's really bad policy, and bad policy ends up being bad politics. But I hope he looks at it as his larger promise to restore the economy, bring jobs back to America. Frankly, he was on a good path of renegotiating some of these trade deals that could lead to even more trade and more prosperity and a better deal. But the tariffs could spiral into a worldwide depression in the past, and we don't want that. He doesn't want that.
Right.
And so I think he's got some bad advice there from his trade team. Right. Better to focus on really using his great negotiating skills to get better deals.
As you suggested, David, he's been pretty consistent on this. He's been pretty consistent on the trade issue and specifically focusing on the trade deficit. Is it possible that he's focusing on the wrong deficit? He's focusing on the trade deficit. You ought to be focusing on the fiscal deficit.
Well, that's true, yeah, and Congress just started spending like drunken sailors again. There's another thing about the trade deficit that I know Pat Toomey and others have told him over and over again. When you count the services and the capital trade that goes back and forth, America's winning on a lot of these trade deals. Let me give you an example just to make it sort of common sense, but you and I, we go get our haircut. We've got a trade deficit with our barber. We give him money and we don't get anything back for it. But we like to do that because we like the service he provides in cutting our hair. And that's what happens with a lot of these countries. We may not be selling them goods, but we're selling them banking services, other services, and America's making a lot of money with those trade agreements.
And David, we also had Speaker Paul Ryan being very much against the tariff. This is what he said today. We are extremely worried about the consequences of a trade war and are urging the White House to not advance with this plan. The new tax reform law has boosted the economy, and we certainly don't want to jeopardize those gains. Are you hopeful that there could be something coming from Congress that could help mitigate the impacts of these tariffs?
I do think there could be. They've got several options. I would urge the president to say, okay, I think these tariffs, which are a tax, ought to go into place, but Congress is supposed to vote on whether we raise taxes or not, and I hope he sends it over there for a vote, because I'm delighted with the Speaker's statement. I think it's helped our allies know this isn't a unified front the way the tax cut bill was. That a lot of Republicans, and frankly, I bet there are a lot of Democrats in these states in the Midwest that are saying, we don't want to lose our agriculture exports. We don't want to lose a big chunk of our economy.
Right. And President Trump also sort of linking the Nafta deal, a fair Nafta deal with the tariffs. How do you feel about President Trump linking these two issues, and also in the past having linked it to immigration as well?
You know, let me take the one about linking the tariffs with that. I think NAFTA can be improved. In fact, there were several things in the TPP that would improve NAFTA. And so I've encouraged the administration to work on renegotiating those deals. But it's kind of like saying, I'm going to be a terrorist in this situation. I'm going to put a 25% tariff on your steel, Canada, unless you do more that I like in the negotiations. Well, people don't negotiate with terrorists. They retaliate. Canada is a good friend. They're not China. They're not the ones trying to rip off our intellectual property, for example. And I think we'd get more done, frankly, more done with a little more honey and less vinegar.